All right, Joshua. Thanks for doing this. I think it would be probably a good start to just introduce yourself and kind of talk about what 1423, what it is, what you do, etc.
Yeah, well, thank you for inviting me. It's good to be here. I'm Joshua. I am one of the founders and owners of a Danish company called 1423, and we are a rum company, I guess. We do anything when it comes to rum. We produce, we are brand owners, we distribute, we import, we export, basically everything. We also do some blending here in Denmark, mostly for small Danish shops that want their own brands. So we kind of, we are all in stock for anything that's about rum. We've been in business since 2008, where we started with, basically you could say one barrel, or at least what amounted to about a barrel, where we did a release of a blend that was 8-year-old Barbados and 8-year-old Trinidad, and around 200 bottles that we sold for friends and family. I think to begin with, I think it was mostly just to drink cheap rum ourselves. but yeah, it was quite successful, and a few people noticed us, and we actually got to represent a couple of brands of what we did with just those few hundred bottles. So we must have done something right.
What did you do before? Like how did you, it wasn't like one day to the other, oh, let's start 1423 now. Like how did that develop?
Well, I would say it was actually very, very close to being from one day to the other. And as many good things happens, they start when you're drunk. And I was quite drunk when the idea came. It was along with my older brother and a couple of friends. We used to be whiskey drinkers, and we used to have like a small club where we would frequent each other's houses every second month, and everyone would bring new bottles that we could try. But we also participated in the different whiskey events and whiskey festivals in Denmark. And it was actually one of them, these festivals, where we got introduced to rum, or let's call it real rum. I think we all had plenty of Bacardi and Morgan and other cheap things when we were teenagers partying and things like that. But we never really had, let's call it premium, high-end rum. And this happened at that festival. And we actually got, when we came into the festival, we went straight up to a local Danish importer, where I used to buy a lot of whiskey from for my own collection and for my own drinking. And straight off the bat, he said, you should try some rum. And we flipped him off very, very fast, and basically, not in such kind words, said, no, thank you, give us some whiskey. And he did. But about, I think it was maybe 8 hours later, the same festival, we returned to the same booth. We were very intoxicated, very drunk. And this time he demanded that we should taste this rum. And we obliged. I don't think any of us was in a position or to fight anything at that time. And I remember he lined up 4, 5, or 6 bottles on a line on the table in front of us, and basically just said, we're going to start here and we're going to end here. And it was close to the end of the show, so he started drinking with us as well. And from the small bits and pieces I remember, it was a lot of fun. And when we were done with those bottles, I think we all agreed that, okay, maybe rum is not that bad. At least not as bad as we remember from those teenage parties. So I think I think 1 or 2 of us actually left with a bottle of rum that day as well.
Do you remember what it was, what the lineup was, or is that blurry?
I have no idea, to be honest. I know I'm pretty certain there was some Bristol Spirits in there, the independent bottler from the UK, because this specific importer used to be the Danish importer of Bristol Spirits. So I had imagined that would have been there, but other than that, I really don't remember. He had way too much to drink. But it planted some roots because around 2 weeks later, my brother called me up again, and he told me, I need you to transfer me 2,000 euros. He said, and I said, what and why? And then he said, well, he had been Googling and investigating ever since that festival. And he'd found a certain company in the Netherlands who could help us make our own rum. And Eva, you know him, of course. We were talking about him.
Right.
It was Gear in Amsterdam. You had Carsten in here a few weeks ago as well. And he had found this company who would help us make our own rum. And he thought we should do it. And, well, me and my brother have had companies in the past together before. Not that successful, but we've tried many times. So I was easily convinced because it had always been a dream of ours. So before the conversation were over, I had wired 4,000 euros because my brother was broke, so I had to pay for him as well. But I did it, and he called up one of the other friends that was with us at the festival as well. He sent his money as well, and we started. And the first step was coming together with the few bottles of rum we had. Found some more bottles, and we started tasting. And we put together what we thought were brilliant tasting notes for our bottle of rum to be. I think it was probably maximum 10 words altogether. And we sent them down. And I don't remember how long after, but then we received a box from Amsterdam with about 12, 15 different samples that we had to try. And we had a couple of very, very fun nights experimenting with them, tasting them. They were all very, very high in alcohol. They were all 65% plus. So we sat with, these plastic syringes from the hospital, measuring out water, try and dilute them to different degrees, and having a lot of fun with it. And eventually we also found our favorite. And the fun thing about these samples, I think, is that they all, when you receive them, they are just marked by a number. So you can't identify what country they come from or anything. Or you can get a list, of course, what is in the blend or whatever they did. But the identification on a bottle is just a number. And all these bottles we got, they all had a number of 14,400 and something. So this was 14,419, 14,420, and so on. And we wrote down our notes for each bottle. And I think we had a lot of fun doing it because in the midst of that, a number disappeared. So in our notes, 14,423, a 4 got lost somewhere. And in all our notes, it was called 1423. Yeah, that's where the name comes from as well.
Okay.
And we ended up ordering this specific blend, and I think it was around 200 bottles. I can't remember, to be honest. But until we actually received it in bottles, months passed, and during all this time we had been calling it 1423 all the time.
Right.
So when we actually received the bottle and it was time to put some labels on it and come up with a name, we sat down again and everybody was like saying, what are we going to call it? And it was right there for us, actually, because I don't remember who said it, but shit, we've been calling it 1423 for months. Let's just say it's 1423 first edition.
Right.
And that was it.
And then how do you find buyers for it?
Well, at around the same time, or I think it maybe was around six months earlier, there was a bar that had just opened here in our city, which specialized in rum. So we did a release party at the bar, went there, pulled everything he had from the shelves and only put up our rum, invited every friend and family and everyone we could think of and put them up there. Had a lot of cocktails, a lot of fun. Family and friends supported very well. Then we took it to a few local shops, some of the shops where we used to go ourselves to buy our whiskey before. And they were happy enough to take it in as well. So basically just by going door to door, knocking on your door and saying, would you like to put this bottle up on your shelf? It was very, very boring bottle. With just a white label with some black text. And the label was probably the cheapest sticker anyone could ever find. But I think that the bottles sold because, they were sold in our city. And we send, of course, friends and family to the shops. So they sold out eventually.
Yeah.
And I actually one thing that happened during COVID is that I went into when COVID started. I went into my basement in my apartment building. I have a big room down there for storage, and I went down there to clear it out. And I found the original box with the original samples from Amsterdam. I also found the original tasting notes from one of us.
Nice.
It's not mine. I didn't write them, but it shows how little we actually knew back then. But you can see exactly, it says 1423 on the paper. And it basically just says, this tastes good. and if you turn the paper, then there's another one. And this is bad. That's it. That was the amount of tasting notes we could put into our bottles back then. But it is kind of fun, and there's still rum in the bottles as well, which is even more fun. And we actually spoke to Carsten about 2 years ago if it was possible to recreate the blend, and it should be. So we have some plans about maybe doing that in the future for something fun. Yeah.
Now, so obviously, you guys have grown a lot since then. You kind of mentioned it at the start, what your activities are now, and so many different things. What do you do now in sourcing? Because obviously you started with shear, but some of the rum you get directly from distilleries, or how do you do that now?
Well, I get my rum everywhere I can get it, I'd say. I still work with Share, and my business with them have just been growing ever since we started. And we've been very happy working with them. Carsten and his team are amazing to work with. Their knowledge is amazing, and they always, I think they've gotten to know us very well during the years as well. So they always know exactly what we're looking for when we come up with some new crazy ideas. We also work with their sister company in Liverpool, Main Rum, where it's not that much on the bulk side, but more in the older aging barrels that we also buy from them for some of our SBS releases. But we also buy direct from distilleries. Like a brand like Compañero that you have in Canada is sourced directly at the distillery. And some of our other brands are also sourced directly at the distillery.
Okay.
So basically everywhere. Whoever has some good rum, I'm always willing to buy it.
Yeah. And do you have certain criteria where you say, you know what, I now want to buy this and not that? Like, how does that process work?
Well, we'd always start with a sample, of course. Always start with a sample before we put any money down, so to say. We want to try it first, see what it is that we're buying. But we're always looking for interesting and new things. It's always fun to work with something someone else hasn't done before. So you can come out there and kind of do something as the first one. That's always very, very interesting. Other things we also look into is what kind of company it is that we're working with. Something that's become more and more important for us during the past 5 years. When you've gotten to know the industry more and more, you also look into what kind of a company you're working with. We are working in some parts of the world where it's highly different from what you expect from where we are sitting in Northern Europe. So most of our suppliers are also asked about their policy, for instance, against their employees, and if they're doing social work. And it's especially important here in Scandinavia. It's something that both our clients is asking for and they're looking towards. If we are doing business with someone who is not behaving themselves, let's say it like that,
Mhm.
then there are a lot of companies who will not do business. And that is very, very important in Northern Europe, especially.
What kind of things would you consider not okay, and you would say no, I'm not working with them?
Well, I think it probably would be different from country to country as well, because there's a big difference if we are working in South America, if we're working in Guyana compared to Haiti or compared to Barbados, and even more if we're going in the opposite direction and saying now we are in India and the Philippines. And another thing on top of that is that you can ask for certificates of social responsibilities, certificates on how you treat your working force and what you're doing for the community. But just because you ask for it and because you get a piece of paper, unfortunately, then you can't always trust it. But sometimes you just have to do it and say, okay, I hope they're right. But we try to visit as well all of the distilleries and producers we work with. We try to go there and get a feel for it ourselves. A lot of the business done within the rum industry is not necessarily on contracts. It's it's a handshake and words saying we have a deal, let's go into business. So a lot of it is based on trust as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and now you have a warehouse full of barrels. I'm sure you're proud of it. I mean, when you started doing that blend exercise the first time with that box of samples, would you ever have thought that you're now where you're now? With this warehouse, barrels, everything.
Never. Our first warehouse was my basement room. So, and I don't notice it every day, but when I do come to the office, when I do come into the warehouse, and the first thing you see in my warehouse are all the barrels, and you see the size of how my warehouse is today, then you do stop up sometimes and remember how it was in the past, where we started, and think about that. Well, we started just to get some cheap rum for ourselves. It makes you wonder, and it makes you proud as well, to see how far it's come.
Right. Yeah, I think it should be. I think there's plenty of people who would have wanted to do what you do, but never started or failed at the first couple of hurdles. I mean, that's a lot of hard work, right, to get where you are now.
Well, it is for sure. It is for sure. Well, I've always wanted to have my own company and be my own boss. I remember when I was a kid, my father used to have companies here in Denmark as well. And I remember people were asking, what do you want to be when you grow up? And, it's all the usual, fireman, police officer, or doctor. Well, I wanted to be a businessman. That was my answer, because I wanted to be like my dad. I wanted to do what he did. Not that I understood it probably at the time,
right?
But that was always my answer. I never had any dreams to become a doctor or something like that. It was always business for me. And I think a lot of my old school friends will say the same, because at lunch break from when I was 7 or 8, I'd be peddling stuff in the schoolyard all the time. I'd have my dad bring home crazy toys or stamps from other countries from all his travels, and I would then sell them in the schoolyard. And that I did pretty good business back then.
Did that evolve to other things in between toys and rum?
No.
So, how many barrels do you have now in the warehouse?
I think right now there's about 900, just about. Oh, and we have, I think we have around 250, 300 barrels coming in soon. Some empty to be refilled, others are coming straight from distilleries to just go in for further aging.
Okay.
If you need more space, I just bought a new house.
Ah. Well,
Lots of space.
I'll send a couple of barrels down to you, Richard, then.
They'll be empty. They'll be empty very soon. Don't do that.
No, because you're coming, and then we have to drink something.
We will for sure. And I promise, Richard, as soon as COVID allows me and I don't have to go back home and sit in quarantine, then I'm starting to travel. That I can promise you. And Amsterdam is one of my first stops.
So what's you already mentioned it kind of, the barrels, is the majority of it bought in barrel, or do you buy empty barrels and put liquid in it? What?
Majority is bought in bulk, in containers. Anything from drums of 200 liters to IBCs of 1,000, and all the way up to container tanks, which is 25,000 liters. Most of the barrels we have, we source from different suppliers. Bourbon barrels obviously are coming from the US. Then we work with a cooperage in Spain, who produce a number of different barrels for us. We've started to work a lot with virgin oak, and we've also had the cooper up here in Denmark actually 2 years ago, where we went to different Danish sawmills. And then we had a number of barrels made out of Danish oak that we've started to play around with. There's also a lot of different wines, a lot of it fortified wines like port or sherry, Madeira. But also we've also started to work with normal wine, I guess we call it, or red wine or white wine. Mm-hmm. And we're trying basically. We're always doing a lot of experiments. And this means to get as many different barrels as possible. Not that I want 100 of each. I want one of each to begin with, to try them, see what happens, see what the effect is on a certain rum. And if it's good, then I'll try and get more barrels. Mm. But usually everything starts as an experiment to begin with, to see if it works. It's the same with the size of the barrels. We use 40-liter barrels. We use 130. We use 200, 225, 400, and 500 liters. So different sizes for different projects as well.
So you just do a lot of experiments, because, I mean, like new oak, for example, is not easy to work with. You just experiment and see what happens to know what you can accomplish with a barrel?
Yeah, well, usually maybe we'll have an idea from the beginning. We have an idea about how the oak will work. We have an idea about, well, is it charred, is it toasted, and which degree. Then we have an idea about what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. But an idea is never an answer. So we got to try. And I'd say we've been lucky, because most of the times it's gone well. We have also had some bad experiments where we had to discard the rum. We also have rum that we had to redistill. I had a 10-year-old from a Jamaican distillery that we put into a fortified wine cask. And whatever wine was left inside of the wood of this barrel had turned to vinegar. So as soon as the rum entered the cask and entered the wood, it drew out the vinegar. And you couldn't smell that, and it was a dry barrel that was rinsed, everything, but you couldn't. It smelled beautifully when we filled it, but when we tried it just 3 months later, the whole rum had turned into vinegar almost, at least in flavor. So that one we redistilled. So we now have a very, very nice 10-year-old Jamaican rum that's now back to unaged. The flavor is very good. I have another barrel. The same thing happened to as well. It was 3 years ago. This is a Barbados rum, and we actually decided to leave it in the barrel. And it's been in there for 3 years. It's a year and a half since I tried it. But just to see what's going to happen if we leave it. Will it start to go the other way again? It's just been going down since we put it in. Will it eventually maybe start to absorb that flavor and develop it into something else?
Yeah.
So it is experiments. And if it goes completely wrong, then it will be discarded. If it's only half wrong, then maybe we'll use it in a blend at some point.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of what Richard Seal said that too, where something might not work out very well, but then you use it in a blend and it's great again. Right. That's the flexibility you have in that sense, right?
Yeah, exactly. Especially you can have some things that gets too oaky, for instance. They can work amazingly in a blend because they can give that oaky feeling to them. And you don't need to use all of it. You can use maybe 10% of that and it will still have an influence on that blend you're trying to create.
Mm-hmm.
So it can work well.
Yeah. Richard just asked who selects the cask? How does that go?
It depends on what the cask is for, of who will do the selection. And are we talking about the wort or the finished cask for an SBS, for instance? We are 3 owners of the company today, and usually it's at least 2 of us who will do some tastings. If it's for our SBS range, then we'll do some tastings together. Sometimes we'll include some of our employees. Eva, you mentioned Gregor's earlier, for instance. Gregor's was a very, very big part of the last release of SBS with the old Guyanas. So it's not one person. It's a team effort where maybe it's some from the sales team or a guy at a festival we've met came with an idea and asked, why don't you do that? Mm-hmm. And then we might try it. So it can basically be anyone. But how it works is in the end we will try the casks and see if the quality is there before we start to bottle anything. And we usually do that by taking out a big sample. We'll try it at cask strength, then we'll water it down 2 or 3% and 2 and 3% in I don't know what you call it, in grades of 3% mm-hmm. all the way down to around maybe 45. And then we'll taste them side by side to see where do we think it's best. Where do we think you get the full amount of flavor, the full palate, the best experience, basically. And then we bottle it at that degree. It's the same with SBS. We often get the question why we don't bottle all of them at cask strength. And the reason for that is simply because we think some of them, they are so much better at just a few % less. And then we want to bottle them there because we know what's going to happen. If we sell them at 65%, there's going to be a number of people out there who will just drink it at 65% because they feel that is how it should be. Mm-hmm. It should always be cask strength. But I actually think they might be cheating themselves for an experience. They might be cheating themselves of a rum that could be so much better with just a little bit of dilution. Mm-hmm. So we always try it like that to find our own sweet spot, I'd say, and then we'll bottle it there.
Makes sense. And so some of the SBS releases are straight cask releases, but some of them are blends. Is that blending? Do you do that yourself, or is that from Share as well, or?
Both actually. Share has, I think they provided me with 1 or 2 blends in the past. I've also gotten blends straight from distilleries, where it's been blended in the cask. And I have quite a lot of barrels we have blended ourselves. That will come out in the future as well.
Okay.
So it can basically be from anywhere as well. But it usually starts the same way. If anybody's saying, well, I made a blend, well, let's try it and see if it's interesting and something we can work with. And if it is, we'll either put it in a barrel or put the barrel in Denmark and wait and see what happens.
Mm. And then once it's aging, are you taste testing on a regular basis just to see where it's at and to decide when you want to bottle it? I mean, that must be a great part of your job.
Well, there's a lot of barrels right now. And we used to, let's say it like that. Today there are too many barrels. There are too many things to taste. There are too many things to try. We also get sent samples every week from every corner of the world of either people who want us to represent their brand, or sometimes just somebody who wants me to try what they've made. And it's impossible to try it all. I can't keep up, basically. So there are barrels in our warehouse that we probably should have tasted because we have no idea how they're tasting right now. But we simply don't have the time. So some of them we are happy to, maybe just forget about, because we have the idea that they are going to be fine and they'll probably be even better in a few years. So let's just leave them. And then we try some of the things that we think will age faster and they age more rapidly, and where there's a bigger difference to be had. And that could be, for instance, some of the virgin oaks we are working with. They give flavor very, very quick. So some of them we try to taste already after 3 months, just to see what's happening. But it's not easy to keep up with that.
I will volunteer, no problem. Just.
Whenever you want, Eva.
I'll do it for free.
You're more than welcome.
Thank you. Now that's SBS, and obviously we're talking SBS because we're major rum geeks here. But I remember when we met in Bogota in Colombia. I think we were in a cab, and you and I were talking about it might have been Compañero, and you were telling me, we love these SBS releases, and that's really passion and whatever. However, they don't pay my bills. I need to bring other types of rum on the market to be able to grow as a company and actually make a lot of money. So can you kind of give an idea of what the difference in these sales volumes are between an SBS release and these other releases that you do?
Well, it's true what you're saying. SBS is we are rum geeks. I'm a rum geek myself. I think everybody here knows me that well, and my company is filled with rum geeks as well. A lot of them are connoisseurs as well. So SBS is like our baby, but the amount of effort and time we put into that brand, and the space it takes up with our barrels, and the tastings, and bringing it to festivals, doing tastings, master classes, things like that, there is no profit in that brand at all. I've never hidden that fact, and I need my other brands like Compañero, like Esclavo, like our calendar or our gin box, because they pay the bills. They pay my warehouse. They pay my salary. They pay for my employees and all of that. If we were to make SBS profitable, I would need to start making blends and put in some blends inside it as well. Or I would need to bottle a lot more barrels every year. And I'm not interested in that because if we start doing that, then I might have to compromise with what we like as well and what we want to put in there. So I want to grow it, and we want to grow it slow so we can keep up and we can keep doing the things that we're doing with the brand.
Yeah.
But we need everything else because those brands pay for us to grow, and we are ambitious for our company. We started a company, and of course we want to see the company grow. I think that's part of owning a company as well.
Yeah.
But we need those other brands to be there. We need those more commercial brands in there in order to get there. And I started as well. We talked about it earlier when I tried the rum for the first time, and there probably was a Bristol in the lineup, but there was also sweet rum that I remember, and I started with sweet rums myself, which were heavily dosed. And I don't usually drink it anymore. well, if I get offered a glass, if I'm out, I'm never going to say no. But it's not something that I would drink every day. Then I'd reach out for one of my bottles of SBS or a bottle of Worthy Park or something else. But something like Compañero, which is where 2 out of the 3 in the brand are flavored rums, those I actually drink quite often. Not on their own, but I like to make cocktails in the weekends. So they will go in as part of my cocktails, because for that I think they have a great purpose and they work really well. But yeah, they are the money makers, so to say, and we wouldn't be here without them.
In what is it the money maker? I mean, for people that don't know, what is the difference between the average SBS release and a Compañero?
Sugar. to keep it very, very easy, sugar and price in the end as well. SBS, because they're single barrels, are obviously priced on a higher side for many reasons. Both because to make a label for just one bottle is a lot more expensive to make it for one cask that is 200 bottles compared to producing 25,000. You can't put it through a professional bottling plant either. You need to do it by hand. So there's a lot of extra expenses with creating something like that. The storage and anything else that goes into it is just a lot more expensive. So that is part of it. So the other bottles, the more commercial brands, are probably better priced. And then there is the sugar question, of course. Many of our best sellers are dosed with sugar to make them sweet. Of course, it makes them smoother, it makes them sweeter, but it also helps to enhance some of the flavor. The sugar is good in that way, that it works just like when we're putting salt on our nice big juicy ribeye to bring out that good flavor of the meat. Then the sugar is also there that it can help bring out some of the flavors in the rum. So for some of them, sugar can help do that, and in others, well, it is just there to make them sweet because people like sugar. Sugar sells. I think it's take someone like my parents, for instance. If they have a dinner party with a bunch of their friends, there are 10 people there. If my dad will put on a bottle of whiskey after dinner, then maybe 5 people out of the 10 will take a glass. 2 of them will do it because they like it. 3 of them will say, well, it's okay, I'll do it to be part of the company. But the other 5, they will grab a shot of Baileys or keep drinking red wine instead because they don't appreciate spirits. But if you put on a bottle of sugared rum, then, well, I'm not going to make any guarantees, but I'm sure that 8 out of 10 would easily drink it and enjoy it. And I think that makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
And I learned to drink rum like that. Many of my friends and most of my family have become rum drinkers because of me and my brother.
Mm-hmm.
And they started with that as well. Now my dad is buying Worthy Park and drinking highest Jamaican rums.
But Joshua, there's a difference between the Northern Europe countries and the Middle and the South. And now maybe not the South European, but there's a difference. A lot of sweet stuff is coming from Denmark, or they like sweet stuff.
No,
and that's a big difference.
That's not only Denmark. That's all of Europe. I can see
everywhere
it
in the world.
Numbers. It's anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
People like sweet. It doesn't matter. If I bring, I go to the Caribbean or South America 2 times a year, and I have a lot of friends over there as well. And I usually bring some bottles of rum for them so they can try and see what it is that I do and what I make. And I don't bring Worthy Park to Jamaica because that wouldn't make any sense. And I'm not going to bring bottles that they know. But when I bring bottles like that, they love them. They enjoy them. They wish they could buy them. Because people like sugar.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. It doesn't matter where in the world we are. People like things that are sweet, and that's never going to change.
You know how I feel about added sugar, and especially when it's done in a way that nobody knows it's actually in there, and they lie about it and whatever. Some of these companies, and I don't agree with your statement that it enhances the spirit. To me, it just makes it sweet, puts a blanket over it. Actually, one of the things for me when I switched from, because I had the same thing, I was drinking all that sweet stuff, and I switched to the non-sugared rums. Once you get a little bit used to the additional alcohol hit that you're going to get, you realize that, my God, there's so much more to this. It's not that one-dimensional sweet kind of thing. There's so much more to it. And I find that was such an eye-opening moment for me. But at the same time, the rum world is, I'm not going to say a percentage, but the vast majority is all sweetened rum. It's just the way it is.
You can see it on the sales numbers everywhere that it is sweetened rum.
Mm-hmm.
But well, there are new regulations coming here in Europe. I think you know that as well, Ivar.
Yeah.
That's taken effect in about less than 10 days now. That will put a cap on the sugar, saying 20 grams per liter. I'm highly against that legislation, and anybody within my company is against that legislation, because everybody in my company thinks it should be 0 grams.
Mm-hmm.
We don't support it as it is. And one of the things people need to question themselves is that, why 20? What is the difference between a rum with 19 and 21 grams per liter? Nothing. And this is not sugar that can have come natural from your aging anyway. So it should have been 0, or let's say 2 grams per liter. Then there's a little bit left for if you've been using a sherry barrel or whatever comes natural through the wood. But it should have been 0. I'd much rather have that we talk about the labeling and then put it on that it's sweetened rum instead. We are in the midst of changing all our labels right now for the new legislation. And we are putting on every bottle right now as well the average grams of sugar per liter. I have to do average because we are still a growing company, and we're not that big yet that we can test every batch that we make. So we have to do average, but we are putting that on and hope that gets approved because I do believe people need to know.
Yeah.
And I don't remember it's ever been a secret with any of my brands. If people have met me at shows or festivals, we've always been upfront about that there's sugar inside.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But it is about education and letting people know as well. But I think maybe there should have been a category for it.
Yeah.
Because we were just talking about the sales numbers and how large a portion the sweetened rum is of the rum industry today. So it might have actually been more beneficial to make a category called, I don't know, sweetened rum, maybe, or sweet rum. So you had sweet rum, flavored rum, and you had rum, which is the original, the pure. I don't know what the right decision is. I just don't think that the one they've made is the right one. And I think it's a problem that so few people had the opportunity to speak up when the legislation was proposed.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very easy to find on pages about the European Union who received the answer about it and who got the opportunity to ask questions about it. Nobody in Denmark got the chance, for instance.
Right.
And I think that's a mistake. But if you look at all the big, very, very huge spirits conglomerates who are more invested in whiskey, they all had the opportunity to get their word in.
Yes, and for them, the sweet rum sells, and that's right.
Are probably more of a competitor than a friend to them.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have Compañero, and then you have Esclavo, which obviously went through a little bit of a difficult period of time because I mean the translation is slave rum.
Yeah.
I remember you and I had a phone conversation about it, and I think I said to you, I think it's a very poorly chosen name. But if you looked at what some of the comments you were getting and stuff that was happening on social media, my comment was very gentle compared to what was happening everywhere. How did you go through that? How was that for you from your side?
It was not a lot of fun. We actually received several death threats as well that came in on our company's Facebook profiles. So they ended up in our marketing department to begin with. So there were a couple of nights where I didn't get that much sleep because I stayed up to delete them so that none of my employees would see them. That wasn't particularly fun. That's for sure. And I think, well, you know, it's social media. People have a tendency to go all out because there's no one to cool you down when you're sitting in front of your computer. It's just you. I don't think a lot of the people who were commenting don't know me or know my company or know about the brand before they saw these posts either, or know what the brand is about. So I think there was a lot of noise in there as well that wasn't worth listening to as well. And I agree. The name probably wasn't the right name. When we named it, it was the right choice. I don't doubt that. It came out of a good mind. It came out of a mind to talk about rum's history, and slaves is something we've talked about ever since we started, and something that has been used in every tasting and masterclass we've done through the years. We talked about the triangular trade and slaves. So for us, it was about highlighting this and talk about some of the more dark areas of rum's history. For some in the company, it's also close to home. Seth, I know you're out there. You're a bit of an historian, but the four guys who came up with the name are all of Indian origin, and their history as a colonized country, and the fact that we have a lot of Indians as well in some Caribbean countries, due to that they basically took over for the slaves in some countries as the indentured worker. So it was a name that meant a lot to us to talk about. The name will be changed now, as well as you know, Ivar. And we've actually had that conversation within our company for the past, I think, maybe 2.5 years, 3 years, to change the name. And we started talking about that when we started expanding outside of our home country and our neighboring countries, because our culture in Denmark is very, very different. And we got a lot of threats from Danish people who did not want to buy any of our products if we changed the name. They think it's wrong because in the culture where we've grown up in and we live in, then a name like that is not exactly a problem. So we never saw it as a problem before we started to going outside of our own borders. Because if we go back six years, whenever there was a question about the name, I was always there to answer it, or one of my partners was always there to answer it. But now when there's a bottle sold in Taiwan or just in Italy, we are not there to answer these questions or stand up for the name anymore. And it was never our intention that anybody should be heard from that name. So we decided, actually, almost, I think it's 2.5, 3 years ago, that we decided that we needed to make a change. But it's not an easy thing. So when we had all of this going on social media, it did make us speed it up a bit and act a little bit faster. And we are almost there, actually. The trademark should come through for the new name any day. Labels have been sent to various government offices for approvals. And I think we will bottle the first bottles under the new name during the summer, probably latest on the 1st of August. So it will be out there soon. I'm not going to tell you the name today. It'll be a secret for a few more weeks, but it'll come soon.
Boo.
And but it was a long process, and in the end we chose a name together with the distillery that produces the rum that we put inside. So we had a long conversation with them, and we chose a name together that we think fits the brand, and also a name so we can actually still continue talking about the history and the legacy and everything we still want to talk about. So I think we found a good match for the brand. I hope. We'll see how we all react in a few months.
I hope so too. I don't want another of those, big mobs attacking you.
No, me neither.
It wasn't pretty to see. I mean, but it's good that you're addressing it and not putting your heels in the sand and going like, you know what, I don't give a shit. I'm just going to do whatever. You didn't, which I think is a very good thing.
I think we did the right thing, and I know there are a lot of people who have been after me for not commenting on the original posts on social media. But I think most people who know me as well know that I don't comment on social media unless someone has a specific question about one of my bottles. Then I stay far, far away. I don't want to get into the discussions there because I think a lot of times they go too crazy. I know, Richard, you've been involved in a very bad accident, I would call it. I know a comment you made that got very, very badly interpreted. And I know Seth and both you, Ivar, you run your own forums, and you know what happens sometimes.
Yeah. People sometimes like to paint people with brushes very, very easily.
Yeah.
And
people sometimes forget to pick up the phone in this day and age because it's a lot easier to type.
Right.
Pick up the phone or go knock on a door and actually have a conversation instead.
Yeah, I agree. And there's nothing you can do about it. You know, it's something you can't win. You just have to kind of take it in and just try to ignore it and just move on, keep doing your thing, you know?
Yeah.
Now here in Canada, I just of course, since we're in Canada, I have to ask something about Canada. We have seen your Compañero is in stores. We've seen the calendar, I think only once, and some privately imported SBS releases. Obviously that's not much compared to what you do elsewhere. What is the challenge do you have with Canada?
Well, it's a monopoly. That is the challenge. That is the big challenge. I think, we don't know much about the market within our company. We don't know much about how it works. It's one of my colleagues who takes care of it. So I know very, very little other than what you're telling me, Ivar, sometimes. But we know very, very little about the mechanisms within the Canadian monopolies. Now, we have a bunch of monopolies right next door to Denmark, in Sweden, Norway, Finland, Iceland, Faroe Islands. They're all monopolies. And we worked with them for many years, so we know exactly how they work. How that machine, where you need to put a little oil sometimes, how you can easily go on the shelves, a few tricks, basically, you could say. Nothing illegal, but all of these big machines, they have a certain way of running, and once you know how it's running, you can run a lot better with it. And we don't know that for Canada yet. So we work with some agents locally up there as well. I think there's a huge potential up there. These agents might need some better support from us here in Denmark as well. And we need to get up there ourselves and visit Canada again and see it for ourselves to learn how it works. Because I'm sure we can get more products in there eventually. And I know there will be a lot more calendars coming to Canada this year, for instance. And we are slowly, we are bidding on more and more tenders. We are suggesting more and more products. So I think there will be more and more coming within the next few years. I hope so, anyway.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the potential is very good. But at the same time, I understand why companies tend to avoid Canada because other bigger rum companies that I've talked to and said, why do we never get some of your special releases or whatever? And they go like, well, either because if I want to sell it in Canada, it's going to be too expensive, first of all. And second, all the red tape I have to go through, I'll just send it to the States and boom, it's all sold. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it is sort of the same with some of the Nordic monopolies we have as well. And the time it takes to register it for certain products, for limited editions, it can take 6 months before the product actually becomes available, and at that time it will be sold out in the rest of Europe. So for SBS, I think in our latest release we only released 2 of them in Sweden, and that was on purpose. We know there are a lot of Swedish people who would like them, but it does not make any sense to release them there if it's not I'd say a big barrel, a full barrel, so I know I get a lot of bottles. Because otherwise I might be looking at, for instance, the Skeldon we talked about earlier, Ivar, the SWR. If I should have released that in Sweden, and for every SBS we do allocations depending on the size of the market, how much SBS do they buy? If I should have released that in Sweden, I should have released 6 bottles. That was it. And the amount of time it takes to actually get that product in their system, you spend hundreds of euros before you're done. It wouldn't make any sense, and the bottle would be gone immediately. So we don't want to release anything there unless we can actually give them a proper number of bottles, so there is enough for the market.
Right.
It's the same with SBS. We get a lot of inquiries from new countries who wants to sell the bottles, and we usually say no, because now the brand has been established in a few certain countries where it's doing very well, so it makes more sense to keep our focus there.
Okay. And so you're saying 6 bottles in Sweden, is that because nobody would buy more than 6 bottles, or is it too expensive?
No, it's basically whenever we do a new release of SBS, we sell them on allocations. So I would say, okay, Germany, you usually buy this much of SBS and your country is this size, you get this percentage of the bottles. And we look at to do the same thing in Sweden, then they will get 6 bottles. Right. And I don't think that makes any sense. But then we had the Fiji and the New Yarmouth we released in Sweden, because both of these casks had a lot of rum inside. The New Yarmouth was watered down, which gave us more bottles as well. So I had a lot more bottles to play around with. And that can make a difference as well, because then I could actually go in there and say, okay, I'm going to give you 60 of each. So then there is enough for the Swedish rum geeks. And it actually makes sense to go through all of the work with doing the registration.
Right.
So some of that gets in there as well. But we will get some more SBS to Canada. Don't worry, Ivar. I am working on it.
I'm worrying. I worry every night. I don't sleep well. Please do something.
Otherwise, I'll have some bottles for you when you come to Europe. You know that.
Oh, good. We're into it in an hour now. I just want to ask you one more question, and then I'm done. And then maybe somebody else has some questions for you. It's a very generic question, but I mean, you've been now in this rum industry for a lot of years. I think it's changed quite a bit. But how have you seen it change from when you kind of got into it until where it is now?
Oh, well, I'm living it. So maybe I don't notice it that much, but you've seen the growth, certainly. The growth of rum, the interest of rum. I remember back when we started here in Denmark, if you went down to, if you want to go buy good alcohol in Denmark, you go down to the wine shop, as it's called. That's where you get your good bottles of wine and your good alcohol. Otherwise, you go to the supermarket. You can buy alcohol in Denmark everywhere. So there are no limitations. So if you went down there back when we started, if you wanted to find a bottle of rum, you'd have to go into the shop. You'd go all the way in the back, and you'd look on the bottom shelf, and then you could find a bottle of rum. And everywhere in the window displays and on the good placements by the cashiers and in eyesights, that was the whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
Today, that has changed completely. Now you find rum in the window displays. It's in your eyesight. It's by the cashiers. And in a lot of countries, rum has started to outsell whiskey. Sells a lot more. I think that is the biggest change. There has been, there are magazines and they've been writing for years. Rum is going to be the next big thing. Or they'll say next year is going to be the year for the rum. They're wrong. Rum is here. It is right here, and it is big, and it's only going to get bigger. Now it's taken over Europe within 15 years. Granted, there are a few countries that still needs a little work, but a lot of them, rum has taken over. It's one of the biggest spirits, and we are talking on the high end side. Take away the cheap mixers or all of that you just use for your Coke. It's the expensive brands, it's the big brands, it's the good bottles. It's taken over, and it's going to continue to go like that. And next step will be Asia for sure. Asia took whiskey when it became popular in Europe. There's no doubt rum is going to go there next. Rum has started to catch up again. If we go back a few hundred years, rum was the biggest spirit there was. Then that slowly got lost, that position, due to history and what happened in the world. But it's coming back now, and it's going to claim that top spot back. That I'm sure of.
Yeah.
Rum has that great opportunity and advantage that the spectre within flavors in rum is just so much bigger.
Yeah.
Like from my whiskey days, every whiskey you get tastes like whiskey. There is a whiskey flavor that you can always taste. Of course, some are peated, some are more fruity, some are lighter, some are smoother, but all of them taste like whiskey. Rum, there is not a rum flavor. There might be rum essence in some countries that you use for cakes. Some of that might be some highest Jamaican rum as well. But there is not a rum flavor. Like the spectre of flavor within rum is so much bigger. And we can take out all the sugar and all the dose and all the flavored rums, and we still have that spectre, which is so much greater. And so there is rum is so much more, and there is a rum for everyone, basically. We can always find a rum that somebody will like. So there is this huge potential that we need to dig into and get. But yeah, let's see.
So people who are saying rum is expensive now, they'll be
they're going to be
for a bad ride.
They are in for a very, very bad ride. Take the auction sites is a very, very good example, and see what's been happening in the past few years. It's gone completely crazy. And some of these bottles, you see bottles that are being sold on the UK auction sites for £100 more than what you can actually still buy them in a shop for.
Yeah, right.
It's completely crazy.
Joshua, remember the festival bottling which you made for us from Worthy Park?
Yeah.
Last time I saw a bottle for €700. Was sold. €700.
I saw it. It's crazy. It's crazy.
700.
I wish I had bought 180 bottles instead of 72.
We should. It was a good rum, that's for sure. I liked it, but it was not €700 worth.
I still have a closed bottle. I'm not going to open it now. Huh?
Me too. Don't do it, Ivar. Yeah.
I have a closed bottle of it as well.
Oh, good.
Okay, good.
but no, that's gonna stay in my rum room for sure. That's a good memory.
Can I ask something?
Of course, man.
Yeah. Okay. I've got two things about the SBS thing. Please get rid of the boxes of the bottles. It takes too much space on our shelves. It saves 2 spots.
It's 22, Richard. 2022.
Yeah, you get rid of the boxes because it takes too much time.
If all goes well, we are working on a new design.
Okay.
So if everything goes as planned, then 22. Then no more of that.
That's good news.
That's a beautiful box, though.
No, it's
beautiful. Don't listen to the retailer.
Hey, I have to put bottles on my shelves, and I sell rum. I don't sell boxes.
Yeah. Well,
but okay.
To be fair, the way that SBS has been going, they don't end up on shelves anywhere anyway. So
they shouldn't. They should be sold immediately. No, but actually, that's always also been in plans for a while, because where we make the boxes is we need to make a lot of them, and it's not that easy to get them into Denmark anymore.
It saves money, eh?
They take up a lot of space. So actually, with the new plan I hope that we can actually cut the costs on SBS as well. And the plan is that will just go straight in and make the bottles cheaper. That's the plan.
That's good. That's what I want to hear. That's good. That's great. Yeah.
Wow. Dutch guys will like that.
I hope so.
No, but it makes the bottle affordable for many others who are starting in rum. And if we are giving an advice to consumers, then sometimes price is an issue. And that's my second. Sorry.
Yeah, go for it, Richard.
That was my second question. Is there no chance to come up with a lower priced SBS release, which will be always available? So it's good for the brand.
You're not the first one to suggest it, Richard, and it is actually something we've thought about a lot. I don't think it's going to happen, not in the SBS format, because SBS, it's single barrel selection.
Right.
So to make anything under that name, that's a blend that's always there, it would just be a contradiction to the name. And
aside from the white SBSs.
Yeah, well, there you have another name attached. So it is something that's on our mind, Richard, and it might happen in the future. I'm not going to say no. I won't say yes either. One day, I think, if the right idea comes, then we'll do it.
Oh, okay. Well, I think it will. How do you say that? Strengthen the brand.
Yeah.
Because you've got an upper price level. That's a single cask, and then you got a line under it, and that's good for. So people get to know the brand SBS, and not another fancy name again, like the others what you're bringing already. And SBS is quality, and it's in the standard series and the upper price series.
I agree.
So,
I agree.
But you're not going to do it.
Like I said, I'm not going to say no. The right idea might come. Maybe it will come, Richard, when you're here next time and we are drinking rum in the warehouse. Then maybe you and me will create the blend to do it with.
Well, that will be great. It will be an honor, Josh.
You're always welcome.
I know.
All right. Does anybody else have any questions for Joshua?
I have one about your ever evolving barrel.
Yeah.
Because that one's only released in the local market, right?
Yeah, it is.
Are you selective in what you throw into that barrel, or is it
very,
or is it kind of leftovers from other barrels, or how do you decide what goes into that, and kind of how different is it from year to year?
Yeah. Well, to give some context first, a lot of people know about the infinity bottle. I have an infinity barrel, at my warehouse. That's a 500-liter sherry bod that they used in the past. It was a sherry barrel to begin with. Then Bristol Spirits put their Mauritius in. So the Mauritius 5-year-old from sherry barrel in Bristol Spirits came from this barrel. And at some point, well, we have so many samples at the office all the time. This is both brands that come in, like we talked about earlier, that people want us to sell. It's things they just want us to taste. It's leftovers from other barrels. It's leftovers from bottlings. It's leftovers from a tasting session, everything basically. So what we do is that we filled up this barrel a couple of years ago. I was in charge of that. I had a lot of fun with it. More than 200 different rums came in there in the first go, and they were old Caroni, everything. And it was basically me sitting on some pallets in the warehouse and looking through boxes and like, oh, nah, that's for me, this one. Or going, one for me, one for you, for the barrel. Of all some of the very nice things that came in there as well. But there is so many samples all the time. So we basically made a plan that every year we're going to bottle 300 liters that will go into these ceramic 1-liter bottles that are only sold in Denmark. And then we will fill up with 300 new liters. And anything can go in there. There are a few limits. Nothing spiced, nothing flavored. I don't want to put a coconut rum in there, for instance, because that's just going to make everything taste like coconut. So it has to be non-flavored. And we also watch the amount of rum with sugar that comes in there, because it cannot be allowed to take over either.
What about ABV? Do you consider ABV on it when you're?
Well, we do consider it because it shouldn't drop lower, of course. So we do consider ABV as well when we fill in, and try to. We want to try and hit it somewhere around 45, so it's easy to drink for most people. So we do calculate that in as well. But I know we just bottled one recently. And that means that 300 liters was missing from the barrel. But I had, I think, 700 liters standing in plastic drums, just waiting to go in there. That is the amount of excess rum, basically, that's just waiting.
I did it once with all the samples which I had, former samples from Jamaican rums.
Yep.
I put them in a barrel. I remember, Chris, when we had that tasting. Yeah, it's a blind sample, Rick's bottle, and it was awesome. Really, it was really awesome. It didn't win. There was one winner, but which we didn't expect. But I became number 2. But it was really awesome. So it's a good taste. And can we expect a United Barbados rum in the future from SBS?
Which one? Sorry.
A United Barbados rum?
United Barbados. Oh, that's a good question. That's gonna.
No, don't answer it.
That's gonna be difficult, I think.
Just kidding.
I know. No, but there will be. I think in our next release, I am planning to release at least one blend that's been blended in the barrel, and I'm going to be doing some tastings quite soon to decide what it's going to be. And I think I'll either end at Jamaica Barbados or Jamaica St. Lucia.
The last one. The last one.
Yeah, I know. I tried them. I tried them maybe 6 months ago. The different blends that we have, and I need to try them again. But I think it's going to be one of those two.
How difficult was it to get the St. Lucian? Because there's not a lot of private label St. Lucians aside from
Hamilton.
I mean, the single cast chairman's is one thing, and then Hamilton. But outside of that, there are a couple. I guess the like secret selection bottles from Italy.
Yeah,
a
the old
while
ones.
ago.
The old ones. Yeah.
And
It
outside
was.
of that, I don't think there's been much.
It was very difficult because St. Lucia has not been selling bulk for many years by now.
Okay, so it's
So that was
old
not
barrels you
easy.
got.
So that was not easy. Yeah, but yeah,
Are they pot still?
you'll have to wait and see, Chris. Some secrets I need to keep for the release at least.
All right, guys. Thank you, Joshua. That was awesome.
Can I just say one thing
Sure.
before you wrap up?
Yeah.
I want to thank Josh for doing this. Number one, because I liked hearing about the starting of the company and how you got into it and how it's evolved. That's very interesting. And number two, I want to thank you, Ivar, for introducing Jeff and me to SBS Rum and 1423. And since then, we've obviously been fans of Josh and the bottlings. And I think I bothered him a little bit on Friday. You
never bother anyone, Meredith.
Oh, thank you. But so thank you, Ivar, for that, because obviously I think you know that Jeff and I owe a lot of our rum experience to you. You helped kind of start it off on the right foot, and introducing us to someone who is bottling some really great rum is a great thing. So thank you both for this.
Well, thank you. I think it's a bit too much praise, but as you know yourself now, sharing the rum love is so much fun to do, and then seeing people pick up from that point and following their journeys is I love seeing that. And it's I'm sure you will continue doing that, and I will continue doing that, and Chris and Josh, and we're all doing these kind of things to get more people into the rum world and just to see how they evolve, right? And I love it. It's so much fun.
It is.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you, Joshua. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of your releases and seeing more of your company growing, and hopefully get your ass into Canada and see what the potential is here and do something about it.
I know. I will eventually. I promise.
Okay.
I promise.
Okay.
Let's get this COVID over with, so we can actually start traveling again. And then we'll need to make some plans for me to get there.
I like the sound of that. You've got a place to stay anyway, so that's the easy part.
Look forward to it.
More than one.
Oh, there you go. All right, everyone. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for your questions. I love this. Thank you.